welcome to that Silverline show on Tuesday. Little low energy this week. I'm still recovering from a respiratory infection, and my lungs are full of fluid. So I may mute myself to cough up a hairball in the back.
Tasty.
Yeah. So it's probably going to be a shorter one this week. We also had some issues with our login, so we got that figured out though, and we are live. I am your returning host and producer, Tim TK, and joined by one Mr. Quentin Von Doom.
Quentin Von Doom.
Yes. And we are at Silverline Show on Tuesday crew. So I guess to start things off, as we normally do, what have you been up to in the past month or so since I had to go on hiatus?
Well, in that time, I finished Trumps, and I'm now working on catching up on some commissions for folks. That's what I'm doing tonight, so you'll probably see me working on that. We've already been hit by the COVID,
No.
so pretty sure anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly, but I think so.
Mine
But
was
yeah.
mine was just run-of-the-mill viral pneumonia.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure that
Uh.
we had gotten COVID over the Christmas break.
Mhm.
I get 2 weeks, and the kids get 2 weeks, and yeah, it had
Yeah.
all the signs. The only thing is, I didn't lose taste or smell,
Mm.
which a lot of people report. But I'm pretty sure because I think we had it at the very beginning, way back in March 2020.
Yeah.
And before we even knew it was a thing, like we turned on the news and we were already starting to get better by then, and they were talking about this sickness. I had no idea, Anyway,
Yeah.
uh, so thankfully, knock on wood, it's just been sinus stuff lately. So
Yeah.
yeah, heart goes out to you, man. It's bad stuff.
It's all right. So wow, brain fart. Yeah, no. As far as comics projects, what I've been working on, I did do a little bit of touch-ups on Wolf Hunter actually, and too much yet, but March was a really interesting time in World War II, especially in about 1940, 1941-ish. So there might be some more news leading up to about that time. But yeah, besides that, I have been mostly playing Halo when I get a chance.
Yeah.
Grind the ranked ladder on that. Almost diamond. It's great to feel good at a game again after dealing with the kids and their Fortnites for so long.
Yeah, I know. The whole dynamic of that game is so different.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it first came out, and there was, if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't even have a single player anymore, does it? Or does it?
I have no idea.
Well, at one time, it had a single player, and that's what I actually got it for.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I actually kind of liked it, but man, when I went into multiplayer though, man, it was just chaos and people building stuff. I'd never played. I mean, just the whole dynamic had changed,
Yeah.
And I just, it was interesting, but at the same time, I was like, I don't really have time for this.
Yeah.
Bunch of 12-year-olds beating up on me,
Mm-hmm.
while I get good.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to put forth the effort.
Yeah, for sure. And a bit more recently, I have been on. We did do right before I came down with my thing. We did a charity stream, raising money for cancer research, and we hit our goal. And people who redeemed so much, I'd give them. I'd custom paint a model and a scheme of their choice to be used in a battle report. So I started working on painting some of their Terminators for Warhammer 40,000.
Awesome.
And most recently, Yu-Gi-Oh! Finally got their version of Magic Arena. It's actually got a decent digital port of the card game. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, I've been playing some Yu-Gi-Oh! Online and actually doing well so far. Over 60% win rate running a Red Eyes deck.
Wow.
So it's been fun.
Man, I remember when Yu-Gi-Oh was first becoming a thing. I
Mm-hmm.
was actually teaching school, and the kids would bring their cards. And this is after I had already gotten out of Magic and everything. And there's all these teachers talking about Yu-Gi-Oh and wanting to take their cards away and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. I was like, nah, it's not hurting anybody.
All right.
It was really good to have a voice of reason, in the pack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, man, if we'd have had that growing up, sometimes, to be able to tell them, no, it's okay. They're having fun. They're not getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Either they spend all their money on these weird little collector cards, or they could be spending it on the cocaine.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been up to. So besides your comic work, what have you
It's
been?
all good until they start turning tricks to get Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah. That's my OnlyFans goes to fund my card collection.
Yeah,
Um,
that's funny.
so besides your comic work, what have you been doing media wise? Have been able to watch anything new, read anything new?
Let's see. I watched. I think I told y'all about this though, but you may not have been here. I watched Spider-Man: No Way Home. That was awesome,
That's so good.
amazing, such a blast. I love that movie. Oh my goodness, I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I have watched a few others, but nothing really mentionable. I have
Sure.
not seen Dune yet, but it is on my
Mm-hmm.
list next up. So I will be watching that. I keep seeing it on there, and I keep thinking, if I get some time in the evening, I'm going to watch this. But everything's so pressing when I get in,
Mm-hmm.
getting the kids all around and everything. And by the time I do, and I just finished Trump's this week, so that's been able to free me up, to do some of these commissions and all that. So that's been a real blessing, being able to get back to, some stuff, doing some
Yeah.
stuff for people.
Well, by saying you crazy party people, and probably in reference to the talks of OnlyFans, cocaine, and Yu-Gi-Oh! All in the same breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Yeah, Dune is still probably my favorite movie last year, so it's always highly recommended. Um, I did
Yeah, I
just
know you're pretty crazy about that movie, huh?
yeah. I love the books, I love the movie, especially after the sci-fi series we got was halfway okay, but then the actual movie was not good.
You talking about the old one
Yeah,
or
yeah, the old one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they're all old now. Holy moly, it's been so long,
All right. Uh, let's see. I
Well,
did
I'm
end up
interested to
watching.
see it.
Yeah, I did end up watching all of season 2 of The Witcher, and I enjoyed that.
I did see that. Yep,
Yeah,
I liked it. It's hard for me to not like Witcher, though. I
I
mean,
know.
it's there's just not much like that on TV
Hmm.
or on any streaming networks or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd really have to really mess up for me to not to like it.
yeah,
I've
like
heard some criticism about it, but I had no issues at all.
yeah,
I
Trade.
was,
Yeah. I definitely see where there's some things where they could definitely improve upon or could have been done cleaner, but
yeah, I
it's
think.
yeah. But I mean, I'm kind of I'm enjoying it so much. Why would I bother throwing a fit over the small stuff?
Yeah, I think a lot of people's criticism was some of the story elements that were
Mm,
changed pretty drastically, and I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, on some levels, but it was still good, and
Hmm.
I certainly wouldn't want to go into a movie knowing everything that's going to
Yeah.
happen.
And they
You
made that
know,
very clear before the first season that they wanted to do them all as like the books, the TV show, and the games would all exist as separate timelines. So they're each different storylines. So the Wild Hunt, which is in the third game, is only lightly referenced in the books, and the TV show is very much along the Keen Full Test storyline that was in was it Blood of the Elves? Leading, but um, and now the second season ties in more closely to the games, but it's walking between the two, and it definitely is its own timeline. So it's interesting. It gives each thing its own value. Like you have reason to go, enjoy each different part of the universe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love, and I really like, uh, what's his name? The guy who plays him.
Oh, Henry Cavill. Yeah.
Yes, I love him because he's just a really, if you ever hear him talk, he is a real gamer, and
He's a real nerd. Yeah.
yeah, he respects,
Hmm.
the entities, the properties that he is, bringing to people. And
Apparently,
that's one thing I just really like about him.
yeah. Apparently, they did an interview with the actress who played Siri, and uh, she talked about how Henry would have moments where he'd just pull out the book and like flip to a page and be like, "Hey, you should use this line," and like this little bit of improv, and would actually start like quoting passages from the book on set to like kind of
Yeah,
set
that's
things up.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how often do we get that? You
Right.
know, an actor or somebody who is actually really, really in there and
Hmm.
committed.
Yeah.
Not much, not
I
much.
was saying he almost missed playing Superman because he was too busy raiding on WoW. He didn't pick up the call from
Yeah,
his agent. Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Um. All right. So, because because we're probably going to be doing a short one, we're only going to be going for an hour tonight. We're going to hop on into our subject, which is fictional worlds, and just kind of diving into the MFA brain. It's the first of the year, so I got to dive into MFA brain, Tim here. So fictional worlds from a creative storytelling perspective. You have three major classifications. You have the real world, and this is where anything that happens on Earth number one. It can be an actual history, a secret history, or kind of a your slice of life stuff, something that wouldn't have an impact so great that it would affect the actual continuity. You have your alternate worlds, and these are like alternate Earths where you have your alternate histories or your um, uh, in the last book would be some in the last realm would be something like Wolf Hunter being a secret history or Murder on the Nile just got their trailer, so the Poirot books are all for a real world. They have alternate history, which is um, anytime where there be an event that is caused the timeline to diverge, so it could not possibly happen on Earth, but it is definitely Earth.
Yeah, those are cool.
So something like Fallout or V for Vendetta. Um, Ring of Fire is a fun one.
Yeah,
The Christian Bale Dragon movie. Um,
that's the first thing I remember seeing him in. Although I know he played in Equilibrium.
Equilibrium is really good.
Was that before or after Rain of
I
Fire?
have no idea.
I can't remember, but I liked it. I
Yeah.
thought I mean, it was different.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about it, and I think that's probably why why it didn't do really well. But
Hmm.
I mean, it was so different, and
That's I loved it,
a
and
fighting style with guns. Come on,
yeah, the
who?
gun fu. I think like if nothing else, the gun fu has definitely influenced a lot of things. Because a lot of people do mention that like the directors of John Wick mentioned Equilibrium and their influences. It's the it's like the first time we really saw high level like cinematography with like gun fu.
Yeah.
And then the third classification is secondary worlds, and so this is anything that is a completely fantasy world. So Game of Thrones has its own world. Lord of the Rings has its own world, and far fiction, science fiction, or high concept science fiction is also considered to be a secondary world because it's something that is either so theoretical that we have no idea if it could exist yet, or everything is so strange and foreign that it is not the same world. Phil Leon saying, "Sup, Concreeks? How you doing, Phil Leon? Welcome
Hello,
to
Mr. Phil.
our low energy show while I cough up alone." Um, speaking of which, but so this goes from everything from your Lord of the Rings to your Mass Effect, where yes, Earth exists in Mass Effect, but it's by no means the main focus, and it is completely unrecognizable, and all the elements are completely foreign. Mass Effect 4 also may have been announced, so that's exciting.
I played that game for about an hour, and it was one of those, I've got to play this some more. And then I saw just how crazy one of my friends was over it, and I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to play that because if he is that crazy about it, we have a lot of the same likes, and there's no way. I don't have time. And I didn't play that one, and then I ended up getting into the Souls games and got just got so far into it. I just should have played Mass Effect.
I think someone described Mass Effect is like one of those. It's a long weekend or it's a free day game where it's like you have nothing else to do, so you're like, all right, 4 hours in my den, no one talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you're taking the long weekend over Thanksgiving, you're like, I'm just gonna,
no showers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at me. You come out to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the main definitions of fictional worlds and how they're built and described as. So we're just gonna kind of get straight into it on the craft section. So working with a fictional world and either one of these types as a writer or an artist, there are pros and cons, and I just talked quite a bit here. So I'm gonna let Quentin talk about perhaps if you're approaching something that is set in the real world or something that's set in an alternate history or a far fictional secondary world. How are some different ways you approach the art or like the design of that? How you approach the visual design?
Well, one major thing that I do is I make sure that I play around. I may draw the characters a few different times in a few different ways, because if you just take my vanilla style, it's kind of rough and gritty. So, I just have to kind of tweak it and kind of move it around to kind of fit, I clean it up if it's a cleaner kind of world. If it's a darker world, I gritty it up. Sometimes I add a little more or less exaggeration depending on what it is, but yeah, that's usually what I'll do is I'll do rough sketches of the characters a few different times to kind of try to get a feel for it. And I uh, no offense to anybody out there who is actually diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm not joking. I literally think that I am uh, a recipient of the ADHD gene. So I read scripts like over and over and over to make sure that I have I just know if I was an actor, I would be reading my lines all the time and reading like plot summaries and stuff just to be able to get into the character. And sometimes I kind of feel like as an artist, you have to do that to get into the world, because, if it's my world, I don't obviously have to do that. But if it's somebody else's, you want to get into it enough and so familiar that you can taste, touch, and smell everything that the writer is, trying to give you. Uh, and you just want that style to match up at the maximum possible amount that it can to keep everybody's eyes on that story. And for me, making worlds, and I mean that's my therapy. I love to. I mean, I just get so lost. I was just talking to somebody. I think it was maybe on the group chat. Uh, Man, I will dip down deep when I get into my stuff, and hours go by sometimes, and I'm still drawing. I'm still up. That's one reason why I stay up so much is because I just get into it, and the clock is just going around and around and around, and uh, I peek my head up, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, and I've got to work the next day. It's pretty crazy. Um, but that is my therapy. I'm all about it. Getting in there, and it's like a vacation, you know. It helps you deal with things, you know. Um, but that's how I prepare. I read the script over and over and over until I get a really good feeling of it, and then I draw the characters a few times. Maybe not the same one over and over. Some I do, but I will draw multiple characters to try to get the idea and really feel till I feel comfortable with it. Because if you don't do that, it's kind of like when you're preparing for a speech or something. You want to know your material, and you don't want to be, it just makes me feel better if I know what I'm doing. And that's the only way I know how to do it.
Sure. I have reapplied. I've resupplied the Ricola. And
Yeah,
finally nursing.
Wolf Hunter was great because
Yeah.
I love history, especially World War II war history. Oh yeah, love it.
Yeah, and Wolf Hunter was interesting because it was my first foray into writing a secret history, which is a type of world that takes place in it's a real world setting, and then you have to find a way to tweak things or to make things put in not real but important elements, but at a degree that they would not cause an alternate Earth, because you're trying to walk that fine line of staying within Earth One without going to an alternate Earth. So, kind of adding a double side to lots of things that exist. Churchill famously had his private army of counterintelligence operatives that he fielded in London during World War II. Called either Churchill's Private Army, or if there were on the foreign element, they're referred to as the Office of Ungentlemanly Warfare, are the Special Operations Executive. And so, creating kind of a darker side to that, or even more secretive to the British side of that, called the Ministry, where it's the same entity but it's with a different facade, and taking a real event that happened, or a couple of real events that happened, and then putting together resolutions that would keep a conflict and then a resolution in a way that would keep it bundled in the same way that it was bundled in through real life history as best we know it. So you can, I guess we can spoil it now. The Christmas special's been out for a month or so.
Yeah.
But the attempted bombing on St. Martin's in the Field, or St. Augustine, based on a couple ideas that the British people were still very much they came they most of the time they slept in, if their homes were in town, they would usually end up sleeping in these underground shelters that are built along kind of interestingly, these are already major population areas, or these major commerce areas. So the people already knew how to come in and come out. It made sense from a logistics point of view. Just people already know where this building is, so if you build it there, they know how to get there and know how to get there quickly. But if you're a German bomber, these are already high density areas that if you had ground spotters, would be able to tell you that that's where they're hiding out. So the idea of Willard um, thinking the ground spotter is going after what might be the higher priority target, but is actually, just trying to do as much damage to infrastructure and industry as possible. And then killing the spotter before the bomber even receives the signal allows me to, add stakes and add something that may or may not have actually happened, but without getting to a point where we have broken history. And we also gets to kind of play around with the ideas of World War II mostly being a war about industry and about trying to hold lines or push lines as much as you are destroying the enemy's capacity to resupply their armies.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot wait to see your first full length. That's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
Super fun. But I almost feel like I had to do more research going into that than I would doing something, creating my own world where I've done that before, working on alternate histories or even a complete secondary world where you can just kind of freely break stuff or freely make things that don't work in our world. You still have to give it grounds of believability, but you don't need to know the exact date and time of the 1940 Christmas Mass.
Right. And I don't have to necessarily draw exactly
the interior of a church. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. But like there's different things you have to really research going into a secondary alternate world or secondary world where you do have to understand the basics of a little bit of basic of everything that would go into sociology, like the very ground basics of what do economics run off of, what do weather systems cause, what makes good geography, and figure out how you can apply that to your fantasy or science fiction civilization. They can go into a whole thing about Gondorians on the lumber economy.
Mm-hmm.
But so very clearly we have a rather fantastical character here, probably from a secondary world.
Yep. Yeah, this is for a friend of mine who is playing at a D&D game right now. This is a dragonborn female, and she always gives me really challenging but just awesome characters to do. So I always really enjoy her commissions whenever she sends them my way, because yeah, I just love doing them. I've had to do for her before. She had this really cool character named I can't remember the name, but it was a female bugbear. There's only like 2 pictures online of a female bugbear. So I had to, and same way with the dragonborns too. And usually they look very, I don't know, very animalistic. I tried to add a little bit of femininity to this one. A little bit more than, what they usually do. But yeah, it's coming together. I'm trying to come up with the right colors. and I'm doing the way I color very dark. So if it all looks very dark right now, that's kind of the way I start out, and then I add the lighter over top of the dark for the highlights. So I may even darken this up a little bit more before it's over with.
Nice.
But right now, I'm just trying to. This character's never been done before, so I'm kind of experimenting at the moment, trying to find the right color scheme. It's very important. Anytime you make a character, you have to really, really make a good color scheme to make it eye catching. And also, I've already got the background done to this, so um, I have to make something also that will contrast really well with the background.
Yeah.
But she's getting this one, and then she'll be getting a group one with her and some of the other players that she plays with. And it sounds like a really good campaign they got going on. I love doing these. I love doing these because I rarely have time to play. But when she's telling me about stuff that they're doing, it kind of gives me a little bit of that feeling like I'm being getting to be involved and
I
all.
think, I think you mentioned this on the show before, but if you're a comic artist looking to, fill some time between projects or find some additional income at cons, start doing custom portraits of people's D&D characters.
Oh yeah.
You will fund your next book.
Yeah, and but don't do it if you don't want to do it quite often, because I tell you what, once you do it and other people see it, they'll be hitting you up. So if it's just just be careful.
Yeah.
You'll get started into something that you won't be able to get out of, so you better like it.
Michael Wilkinson, sorry, my German kicked in there. Wilkinson, part witch, part vampire. That is a female dragonborn from D&D 5th edition. Yeah. I guess they got introduced in 3.5, but more popular in 5th edition.
Yeah, you got to be careful too, because like when I first did this, which she didn't say anything, she didn't mind at all. But I had this dragonborn with a belly button, and it is a dragon born, so no belly button.
No, yeah.
They hatch. They don't. They're not. They're not birthed like humans. So just a quick look at the background here.
Ooh.
But more specifically,
yeah,
I've kind of blended it out a little bit. Let me bump it up just a touch. Well, that's what I have right now. So anyway, it's probably going to change a few times, different parts of this, but we'll see.
Yeah. And that's also another, a little different when you're working with something like D&D, where you do have at least some sort of source material to reference off of. But when you are working with a secondary world, part of the risk and the extra work comes in on that with looks great, Chad says.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I used to be skimp on backgrounds, and sometimes I do. It depends on what tier people want. But I can't remember who it was that said it. They said that the background is a character.
Yeah.
So if you skimp on the background, you really do, hurt yourself.
I'll probably share it with you after we end our show tonight. But there, it'll be a page that I'll definitely use to advertise as we get closer to March for certain World War II related reasons. But going from a really strong background to a really soft, punched out background for dramatic effect, it's one of the if you're going to lessen out a background and it's not for Yeah, work involvement. If you're doing that to tell a story, you have to watching your how much detail you put into it normally, and then knowing when to increase and when to decrease can have a huge storytelling effect.
Yeah, and sometimes you really have to, like this right here, I'm probably gonna have to kind of go down on it just so that the background at the same time
Mm-hmm.
doesn't compete with the foreground,
All right.
because the whole idea is that you want to draw people's eyes to different parts,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have a wicked awesome background, but if it is too loud, it's gonna overshout the foreground, and you don't want that.
Yeah, we can tie that back into creating your secondary worlds. Uh, Part of the issue with creating a secondary world is unlike a real world or alternate history, where at least you have like a grounds to base your world building off of. Every detail comes down to you, so you just have to experiment with it and be okay with getting halfway through something and realizing, like, oh no, this is dumb, and then going back and redoing your design or your outline. Um, but then when you're creating that world, that setting, the elements, um, you need to make sure that your characters live up to that setting if you're spending so much time working on it, or that they exceed that setting.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how cool your fantasy empire is and how well thought out you have their methods of agriculture and their you know weather control devices, if the characters that we are supposed to follow in this empire are as compelling as dry bread.
Yeah, definitely. I find it really interesting. I like to watch shows, documentaries about movies,
Hmm.
because I find it so interesting just how far a story comes
Hmm.
from. Like, they'll tell you, well, in the beginning, the writer was going to do this, and we almost had a this instead of a that,
Hmm.
and I find that really interesting to see the evolution and to think of the possibilities. What if they had done that? I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of an example. The latest one I was listening to was George Lucas, but I can't remember
Oh,
what it is right
Star Wars is almost something completely different. They actually have a comic out. I think it was either Dark Horse or IDW that put out the adaptation of the original Star Wars Episode 4 script. Han Solo was a fish man. Luke had a robot head. Um, it was almost more. I mean, Star Wars by itself is already a creation myth, but it was almost more so like just a religious thriller, like in the idea of like, uh, trying to understand the concept of God. um, what is God in space? That was not nearly the we're getting into, and then eventually got turned more into with samurais involved, and is almost going to kind of feel like a shonen or like uh I think originally it looked something like uh what's it, Seven Samurai meets Metropolis. It's weird, but once he realized he wanted to be more about space wizardry and then tie that into the samurai motif he liked, and that kind of took more of the shape of Star Wars we actually have, but it was nearly something wildly different.
now.
I mean, yeah, if you look at even and any Lord of the Rings work was there once was a hobbit that lived in a hole.
Yeah.
Uh, it was already kind of getting into like the weird world building, but uh, when you get into like the like even like the Silmarillion and the appendix and the Apocrypha that he wrote while working on Lord of the Rings and all stuff. And Elvish, you always had these characters in mind, like all the additional world building is kind of almost done as like short stories, like even like parts of Silmarillion read like uh an encyclopedia, but it's an encyclopedia of individuals that he had said that he had intentions of fleshing out.
I find it amazing how many that he did, actually flesh out. With Lucas, he did. He had the character. He kind of by necessity had to do that for all the lore people who wanted a world, and wanted everybody to be something. But in the case of Tolkien, he kind of already had stories written out and connections, and I thought that right there. That's some intense, world building there.
Yeah, I was always kind of using the characters as a focus, so that way the as much love and at a time as he poured into creating his secondary world, it never overpowered the characters.
Yeah,
definitely very, very interesting.
So y'all are seeing my process here. This is kind of how I like to roll. Sometimes I change things up a little and I do something totally, totally different. Sometimes I just want to, get crazy and try something new or try something that I don't do very often. And sometimes it really just depends on the piece. But for right now, this is what we're going with. Like I say, this may change. This is more of a render type coloring. It's not like old school awesome like Roberta. Man, that I always mention her name whenever I start talking about coloring. She is just so good.
No.
And she's so much more efficient than this, and it still comes out looking so good.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be so excited when I can show pages from the Wolf Under Main. I'm always going to give as much credit to the people I work with as possible. Like I whenever someone tells me like they're off that they have picked up a copy of the Christmas special, I always like gush about how great of a job you and Mickey did. Because it's just wild. Like the amount of effort I put in creating words compared to like the carpal tunnel you guys develop arting our words as writers.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's often made me think about becoming a writer. No, I'm just kidding. I actually do write some stuff, but
yeah,
nothing I have here at the moment. Got the board game. Who knows? Maybe eventually it'll come to Silverline. Who knows?
who knows? Yeah,
because I want to do comics and all kind of stuff off of it, and it's more fantasy based.
That'd be super cool. All right. Well, we are coming close on time here, so we're gonna go for about an hour because I am fading. And you do have an ad.
You're fading.
We have an ad to run here at the end, but I'll kind of briefly touch on alternate worlds since we jumped from real worlds to alternate worlds or to secondary worlds. My go-to example for an alternate world is always something like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is set in Napoleonic England, in a world where magic is real and it is something that's like studied, and as you know, we're in societies are entering into points of conscious governments at this type, so they are, you have like the ministry system is being created, so you're having like these government and civilian oversight panels over magic and all this stuff, and they look into the possibilities of using magic to deal with the Napoleon problem. And it's very interesting. Getting into things like the Battle of Waterloo and all that, as well as just the impact of magic on society in general at the time, how that would play into the politickings of the court and all that. Do you have any examples of alternate worlds that you've dug or working on those? Is there kind of like a middle ground on, mimicking things that might exist in real life while also having more of a themed or tone based approach for your creations or designs?
Uh, no, most of my stuff is what a lot of people would say. Man, that's weird. That guy's weird.
Sure.
No, I have never really examined it that closely or
Sure.
that well. But when I think of that, I don't know. What would you say that like Star Trek? Would you think that that would be that doesn't really
I feel like
speak
uh,
fantasy to me?
yeah, I feel like at
Wh-
that point, Star Trek gets to a point where it's considered a secondary world because you're already dealing with a point where all the technology is non-real or hypothetical, and it features so many diverse non-humanoid species or variations of humanoid species that it does not reflect something you might see in contemporary or historical Earth.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of the same thing that like Mass Effect falls under, where it's so science fiction it becomes a secondary world.
yeah, not an alternate, just a secondary.
Yeah, something like uh, if you're looking at something like a Terminator or an Alien
Oh
or
yeah.
Predator, like that's a point where it would become an alternate world, where it's not enough to fully go past the point of being like contemporary Earth, but there's definitely a point in there where history has diverged.
I love those films.
Hmm.
Man, I grew up with those films. When I was growing up, we got to watch whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
I was telling my son about that the other day. I was like, my dad, he let me watch anything I wanted, anything at all. I watched RoboCop. I watched all these,
Yeah.
Terminator when they came out, Conan, it didn't matter. I got to see all those, but I told him, at the same time, I also had nightmares all throughout my childhood. And it's probably what's developed some of my uh, artistic skills is and storytelling abilities is because of watching that stuff and but at the same time there was a price to be paid.
Yeah.
But I'm always careful what he watches. Uh,
Hmm.
because this is the thing. He was watching YouTube not too long back, and I wasn't really able to have enough time to be uh, watching everything he was watching. And he was watching some pretty scary kind of stuff. And it really, to me, it wasn't scary at all. But to him, with it,
Yeah.
him being a fresh brain and everything, uh, he was having trouble like going to bed without the lights on and stuff. And uh, it's because he was watching that stuff, and that's when I started perking up and like, hey, what are you watching? And it's so funny because see, my daughter, she was never scared of the dark,
Hmm.
never scared of the dark until she turned about 15 years old when we opened up the floodgates to just let her watch, whatever she wanted to.
Yeah.
And she had a friend over, which it really was never an issue. She never really asked to watch any of that stuff. I probably would have let her a lot earlier, but she had a friend over, and this friend of hers loved scary movies, and
Mm.
so they started watching scary movies. And from that point on, she had a trouble with the dark and had trouble with going to sleep at night. It was
Yeah.
it's kind of hilarious. I don't know how all that works, but it does.
Yeah. It's definitely weird. And then yeah, I mean, when I was younger, there were some episodes of like Stargate SG-1 that would give me the spooks, but now I go back and try to go back and like watch as many of like old slaughterhouse style movies as possible, and like break down like how people are being vivisected. They decided to
Well,
do that arterial spray.
they had no problem with like the old Ghostbusters before the Afterlife was ever announced. Even I had
Hmm.
them watching Ghostbusters because it was, it's
Yeah.
kind of humorous,
Yeah.
you know. But man, when I took them to see Afterlife,
Hmm.
oh my goodness, there's some parts in that one that is pretty scary. Even for me, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
that was pretty scary.
I think that's also where well, we can use this to get on subject and tie up in a bow before we hit our ad. But I think the reason why horror works so well in an alternate Earth type setting is because there's enough there to make it like familiar, but then you can find a way to break something that immediately messes with someone with one of the sense of normalcies that is psychologically people hold sacred. There's a whole like set of normalcies that are considered important to society that I could get into at a different time. But and when you violate those, that's when it can elicit a like horror response. So like the people's expectation of bodily safety or whatever. So when you get into body horror, that's when you can get into that, or the idea of possession. So when the physical possession, as in like possession is 9/10 of the law. That the people, when you lay claim to something, people expect that to be honored. So when part of what makes the doll and Annie so creepy is when that suddenly breaks that sense of you claim possession of this, but it's owned by something not you.
Yeah.
That it's before we get into even the rest of it, that's the first thing that sets off a response where your set of normalcies are not being respected, and that can set up your psychology. So
There are a few things that I have different kind of scary. There's gory scary.
Yeah.
Doesn't really bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times it's a little cheap. Then there's jump scary.
Mm-hmm.
Not that bad. That doesn't really bother me. But movies about like possession and stuff like that, that's where I'm like,
yeah,
that creeps me out. Like
mm-hmm.
that's on a different level.
Yeah. Body horror, I'm also fine with this because and I might be jaded to the point where like most of the time I find it amusing the way they do hyper violence. Also being someone who writes stories with that involved in it often, you almost really, there's a creative respect to it where you almost want to take notes. But for me, I can do possession stuff usually fine. Kind of paranormal stuff I can do usually fine with. But when
paranormal doesn't bother me. Just strictly possession. That's where I get a little.
For me, it is jump scares. Like my adrenals are so shot and like whacked out that when existential horror is also really cool. Either getting into the idea of existential crisis where it's humanity's about to be wiped out, or existential like Cthulhu type stuff. The bending of realities, that's my favorite. But when but like jump scares, when like the right sound cue hits or something pops up, my adrenals are always firing in weird ways just from years of abuse, and they're doing different types of sporting stuff, and close run-ins with near life experiences.
I know all about everything you just said.
Yeah, my adrenals will just immediately just start firing, and I that's what gets me is the jump scares. So we do have an ad to run real quick here, and then we're doing a short one tonight. Like I said at the top of the show, I'm still coming off of a respiratory infection, so my lungs are that they're currently all the time. So I'm gonna pass out here after we end our show tonight, but we're gonna hit our ad, and then we can let you know where you can follow us, and that'll be our show.
Awesome.
Hi, I am Roland Mann, and I run Silverline Comics, the genre-spanning independent comic and graphic novel publisher. And I'm here to tell you about our latest Kickstarter. I'm not going to waste any more time talking. John, tell us about Sniper and Rook.
Hey there. Thanks for stopping by. My name is John Medic, and I am the creator and writer of Sniper and Rook, now coming to you from Silverline Comics. Thanks for checking out our Kickstarter, and we hope that you'll go ahead and pledge. A little bit about Sniper and Rook. They are a pair of covert government operatives where they work underneath a specific general. They are tasked with missions that take them across the globe, across the world, across maybe the universe, since we're dealing with Area 51. Check it out. Pledge today.
Thanks, John. And now I get to tell you about the rejects. Come on, I'm so excited to tell you about this one.
When danger is near, we need heroes who can respond decisively and with authority. When evil is around, we need superheroes who can fight supervillains. But what do you do when the Fantastic Four is busy? When the Justice League is unavailable? When the Avengers are out of the galaxy? The world has no other option. They call the Rejects. Rejected by all other respectable superhero teams, this band of misfits joins together to fight crime and injustice, and maybe get a mention on the evening news. They are formidable, ferocious, fearless, and forgettable.
John and I are so excited. Actually, we've been really anxious to do a Kickstarter together for like 2 years now. Maybe 2 years. Something like that. It's been a while. So, back it if you can, share it if you will, and remember to make mine Silverline.
All right, we are back. Going to be running our banner at the bottom there. Go ahead and back and get your pre-order done for Rejects and Sniper and Rook. We have been That Tuesday Show. We have our tags running at the bottom there. You can find pretty much all of us on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, where I mostly share stuff about Halo and Destiny, in addition to talking with comics friends. Yeah. Is that Quentin, what's the next Silverline thing or project in general that people can see from you?
Nightrise. Nightrise. Go to the Facebook page. Like it. Like it. It's good. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good. That is the next thing I'm working on. I've been so excited to get into that. Let me see if I can pull up just a little piece of artwork just to give you an idea. Now, this is going to be in production next. I just finished the Book of Trump, so let me find it. Here's, let's see if I can pull this in. As an example, where is the... Oh, I've got it listed under Justice because it was named Justice. One of those little tidbits. Okay, here we go. Let me pull this in. Maybe it'll show up. Come on. Try to do it this way. There we go. Looks like we're glitching a little. There we go.
Yeah.
That's one little pin up for it. That was one of the preliminary things that I did. There's a close-up shot of something that's on the some of the promotional materials. Yeah, it's going to be... I just think it's going to be awesome. I cannot wait to get into it. This is my kind of stuff, you know, the grittiness that I have. This is the kind of stuff that I love to do.
Yeah, it looks super cool. I'm very excited to get my hands on it. The next thing that people can see from me is Wolf Hunter, and that is going to be coming out here soon. We're going to have more news. I can't give exact date just yet, but we do have more news for sure coming to you in the end of this quarter. And I'm going to be sharing some of what we can see here. And it is it's looking like we all kind of I love the artist, the colorist, and the penciler and the inker that are all working on this, because we all kind of writing the script and reading the script. They all kind of agree that it's like a French comic, and so it comic, and I absolutely love it.
I love the noir.
Mm-hmm.
It just fits that timeline and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I tried to add that. And see, I've never really done too much noir. This guy who you've got working on it, that's some awesome work. I love that.
I'm loving work. And that colorist is, let me get his last name up here. It is Martin. Show me his last name, please. Martin Mertonen, as the colorist there. AJ Cassetta as the penciler, and John Martin as the inker. It absolutely could not have asked for a better team. So we have been at Suvan Huse. Follow us at our links down the bottom. Buy yourself a copy of Rejects and Sniper and Rook. And until next week.
And it's still going, correct?
It's still going, yeah. Until
Still
the 30th.
going.
Yep, you can still get your copy until the end of the 30th.
Awesome.
All right. So until next week, make mine
Silverline. Take care, everybody.